Amazing transformation. Struggling dad discovers his first love is now a millionaire CEO. See what happens next. Bill could hardly believe his eyes. Standing there at the fair, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, was Sarah, his high school sweetheart turned millionaire CEO. As she waved and approached him, memories flickered like an old film reel. Years of ambition had taken her from their small town to striking heights, while Bill remained tethered to the grease-stained floor of his modest garage, wrestling with engines and emotional turmoil. The moment Sarah reached him, her confident smile only served to amplify his insecurities. "Hey, Bill, it's been so long." Her voice, light and carefree, was in stark contrast to the weight pressing down on his heart. Clenching his jaw, Bill responded with a half-hearted grin, one that barely masked the unease bubbling beneath. The gleaming amusement rides, vibrant lights, and the intoxicating smell of funnel cakes swirled around them, but all he could feel was the suffocating embarrassment cloaking him in shadow. She spoke of her endeavors, new patents, team expansions, charity galas, while he stood there, a mere ghost anchored in his own modest life. He wanted to recount his own stories, his battles as a single father raising Emily, but all that came out was a stammering, "That's great, Sarah, really great." Their laughter quickly gave way to an undercurrent of comparison, an unspoken contest he couldn't bear. He fought the urge to retreat to the safety of his workshop, where engines roared stronger than insecurity. Jealousy gnawed at his insides as he thought about Emily's dreams of city life, far removed from his simple existence, a life he'd fought through divorce and disappointment to build. Would Sarah ever understand the sacrifices he had made just to keep their daughter happy? She would never have to struggle like he did, would she? Before they parted, Sarah invited him to her charity gala. The invitation twisted like a knife in his gut. The mere thought of mingling with those polished people, judging his worn work boots and the scars of failure he'd carried through life, made his heart race, not in excitement, but in panic. Feeling cornered, he stammered his reluctance. "Maybe I'll think about it." Emily's face flashed in his mind, pursed lips and an eye roll, upset because he wasn't ambitious enough. He didn't want to let her down. He had to show her that hard work amounted to something, that it could make a life in this town worthwhile. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Nights fell heavy on Bill after the fair, the weight of a decision pressing down like the hood of a truck. Could he risk failure again, or should he cling to his day job? Meanwhile, Emily grew restless, chafing against his resolve, believing he was holding her back from a life she yearned for. He stood at a crossroads. Embrace his talent and attempt to rise from the ashes, or continue his steady descent into obscurity. The anguish twisted tighter as realization hit. Pursuing a budding connection with Sarah while keeping his daughter's hopes alive was setting him up for a collision he wasn't sure he could survive. The stakes were mounting, and Bill was left spiraling, anxious yet determined. Would he harness his mechanical skills for something greater, or allow fear to steal both his and Emily's dreams? He caught his reflection in the garage window, a blurry image of a man caught between disparate worlds, and wondered if he would ever find the courage to leap into the unknown. Bill woke up to the pale light filtering through the cracked window of his garage. He stretched, discomfort mingling with a nagging sense of urgency. Generating better days for Emily hinged on decisions he hadn't made yet. The memory of Sarah lingered, an echo that clung to him like the grease on his hands. What could have been if he had chosen differently? What if he could mold his reality instead of merely surviving it? Despite the tension coiling in his gut, he grabbed his toolbox and headed to the workbench. Tools sparkled under the dim lighting, but all he could see was the rust on his own aspirations. Each piece, a wrench, a hammer, represented the scraps of confidence he had left. Here, he was an expert, a builder. Out there, he was confronted with a world buzzing with accomplishments he felt powerless to attain. Determined to silence the chatter in his mind, he focused on a motorcycle engine he had begun restoring weeks earlier. The task was complicated but tangible, a series of challenges he could dissect like a puzzle. Step by step, he pieced it back together, each twist, every adjustment a metaphor for his own life. If only he could revamp himself as easily as he could modify the aged parts, Bill thought bitterly. But then something interrupted the monotonous whir of thoughts. An idea bubbled to the surface. The charity gala Sarah had invited him to. What if he didn't just attend? What if he showcased his work? His heart raced at the notion, a spark of hope igniting in the depths of his mind. He could display his talents, demonstrate what he was capable of, while also connecting with potential business opportunities. Yet doubt clawed at him. What if they judge him? What if his creations paled in comparison to what they were accustomed to? The image of the polished, affluent faces flooded his thoughts, each one scrutinizing the simplicity of his craftsmanship. Bill gritted his teeth, knowing he had to fight through the morass of self-doubt. When had he allowed others' perceptions to dictate his worth? Days passed as the countdown to the gala grew shorter. Bill plunged himself into his work, polishing engines until they gleamed, spitting out ideas for potential projects that could change his life. Emily, sensing the shift, buzzed with enthusiasm, offering suggestions for his display. "You need to show them your best work, Dad. They'll love it." Her belief in him was a buoy when he felt himself sink. Every evening, after long hours of restoration, they would brainstorm ideas. Together they dove into their envisioning, blending the dreams he had buried with the vivacity she radiated. For the first time in years, he felt momentum. Each creative spark he ignited felt like a message from the past, an old love for building and innovation roaring back to life. Yet lingering shadows remained. What if he failed to impress? What if this opportunity slipped through his fingers? As the day of the gala approached, Bill wrestled with overwhelming anticipation and trepidation. He pored over every detail of his presentation, rehearsing in front of mirrors. With every reflection, he contemplated conflicting fears. What would Sarah think if he faltered? Could he really stand shoulder to shoulder with her and the successful figures she had networked into her life? The hour of truth loomed just ahead, and as he stared into the polished glass of his workshop window, he realized something profound. The stakes had never merely been about acceptance or recognition. It was about confronting his own beliefs of self-worth, about unlocking a confidence that had long been dormant. He was ready to reclaim the parts of himself he had tucked away. But would that be enough? Bill felt his heart hammering in his chest as the final preparations for the gala consumed him. The moment of truth arrived, but a deeper question brewed within him. Was he ready to face not only the judgment of others, but the truth of his own journey? With a deep breath, he steeled himself for what lay ahead, knowing that redemption, both for himself and for the dream he had revisited, was finally within reach. As the night of the gala unfolded, Bill stepped into the elegantly lit venue, a blend of excitement and palpable anxiety surging through him. The opulence surrounding him felt overwhelming. He adjusted his grip on the toolbox he had chosen to carry. It was a deliberate symbol of the life he was reviving. Each step felt heavy, as if the polished floors pushed back against him, dismissing him as an interloper in this world of sophistication. The faces around him blurred. Some were familiar, like the ones he recalled from his previous life, while others were entirely foreign. Laughter and conversation created a symphony of dissonance in his ears, compelling him to retreat into himself. Yet Emily's words echoed in his mind, a reminder that his presence here had purpose. "Show them your best work, Dad." Her faith in him sparked a flicker of resolve. Bill navigated through the crowd, clinging to the thought that he didn't just belong here, but that he could prove his worth through the very talents he had polished until they shone. His display area, slightly tucked into the corner, became a little haven amid the noise. The motorcycles gleamed under the soft lights, reflecting both years of hard work and the care he had poured into every piece. He glanced at each machine as if they were his children, each one an embodiment of his struggle and achievements. As he set up, an anxiety-fueled urge to second-guess everything gripped him. What if the sleek designs of his motorcycles drew unwilling comparisons to the luxury vehicles that surrounded him? He clenched his hands until his knuckles turned white, digging deep for an anchor of self-acceptance. Trying to shake off the dread, he found himself staring at the engine of a vintage bike he'd spent months restoring. Something inside reminded him that he had put in the effort, he had earned this moment. As guests began to flow over to admire his work, he felt the tension unwind slightly. Conversations started, tentative at first, but then they grew lively. Each compliment made him buoyant, but also heightened the stakes. He didn't merely want to gain their approval, he needed to convey his passion, the love of mechanics and engineering that had once fueled his dreams. Then, unexpectedly, Sarah arrived. The world around Bill faded. She was radiant, effortlessly commanding the attention of everyone in the room. His heart raced, a cocktail of emotions swirling within him. Could he face her without being swallowed by the insecurities that threatened to consume him? The air thickened with nostalgia as they locked eyes. Bill's mind raced. She would surely see the man he had become, the grittiness of years of struggle etched into his features. Challenge and hope collided within him, and he steeled himself as he approached her, adding a desperate flair to his courage. "Hey," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I wanted to show you what I've been working on." As he gestured to the motorcycles, a wave of vulnerability washed over him. He yearned for her recognition, not just acceptance, but acknowledgement of the depth of his journey. Her smile faltered as she glanced from the bikes to Bill's determined expression. "They look incredible," she managed, masking surprise with enthusiasm. But then her eyes narrowed slightly, and in that moment, Bill questioned whether he had overstepped. Had she come to judge, to critique the man he was? What began as an impulsive move now felt like a gamble. Would this confrontation bring him validation or further insecurities? He inhaled deeply, realizing this moment would define the path he would choose moving forward. With every remark, with every uncertainty laid bare, the specter of his past returned, asking for resolution, for clarity. He needed to know whether he could embrace progress without the shackles of fear binding him. The stakes rose higher. The very truth of his transformation hinged on this exchange with Sarah. As tension crackled in the air, he realized this was less about impressing anyone else and more about truly expressing himself. The question loomed. Could he finally shake off the chains of regret and embrace the person he had become? With the moment poised to unravel, he braced himself for the challenge ahead, sensing it was time to reveal the depth of his growth, both to Sarah and to himself. Bill's pulse quickened as he prepared for Sarah's response. Her narrowed eyes hinted not at criticism but curiosity, forging a tension between them that felt electric. He sensed that the conversation held more weight than casual pleasantries. With every reciprocal gaze they exchanged, he felt himself being drawn back to moments of shared dreams and the bittersweet echoes of their past. What had once felt like a fresh start now bristled with the weight of expectation. As he stood, toolbox in hand and heart racing, Bill realized he was at a crossroads not just in his career, but in his life. This opportunity to connect with Sarah felt like an urgent catalyst for the transformation he had started to embrace. "I've put a lot of myself into these," he offered, hoping sincerity would bridge the chasm of time that had grown between them. As she approached the motorcycles, Bill took in her form as she inspected the chrome and paintwork, memories flooding his mind of days spent dreaming together in grease-stained t-shirts. He wanted to challenge the ghosts of an old life with the woman who had stood by him, witnessing both his triumphs and setbacks. "What do you think?" He forced the question past his trepidation. "They're beautiful, Bill," she said with genuine enthusiasm, a tone that softened the harsh edges of his anxieties. "This design, it's different, it's innovative." Her admiration sparked a flicker of pride inside him, a warmth that brought clarity to the chaotic swirl of his thoughts. Yet he couldn't shake the doubt that lingered. Her praise felt like a temporary salve, one that could wear off under scrutiny. But is it enough? The question slipped unexpectedly from his lips, carrying a vulnerability he hadn't intended to expose. "I keep wondering if I've really evolved or if I'm just pretending." Each word unveiled layers of his struggle that had remained muted until this moment. The crowd around them faded, becoming mere shadows, while Sarah's attention locked onto him. For a brief moment, the chaos of the gala transformed into a cocoon where the demands of success and fear of failure stood suspended in time. "What matters is that you're here, Bill. You've done the work, you're back, and that's something to be proud of." Her words resonated, yet indecision gnawed at him. Bill had built resilience through trials, yet here stood the possibility that a single encounter could either validate his journey or send him spiraling back to feelings of inadequacy. The decision before him felt pivotal. Would he push forward, facing his insecurities, or retreat into the shadows of self-doubt? Emily's voice echoed in his mind once more. "Show them your best work, Dad." With that thought, he understood that the gala was more than a marketplace of motorcycles. It was a testament to his new identity, embodying not just mechanics, but the spirit of resilience he longed to share. Swallowing hard, he resolved to dive deeper into this moment. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice steady, though heavy with the weight of what he wished to disclose. The request held a mix of dread and anticipation, as if stepping toward the edge of both hope and fear. He needed to confront the dormant feelings that had lingered between them, ready to surface with the potential to either shatter his newfound growth or solidify it. Sarah's expression shifted, a glint of surprise quickly veiled by introspection. Her nod was cautious, yet inviting, signaling that she too recognized this juncture as something significant. "Sure, I'd like that," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty hanging between them. As they moved away from the cacophony of the crowd, Bill felt the anticipation coiling tighter within him. The next words would delve into the complexities of their past, the dreams they postponed, and the reality they now faced. Decisions that could forge a different kind of future. Could this conversation unveil parts of himself he hadn't yet embraced, or would it unravel the very fabric of the progress he had fought so hard? The moment was upon him, demanding courage and clarity as the two neared a reckoning. All the while, a quiet voice within him urged, was he ready to confront not only his past with Sarah, but also the future he hoped to reclaim? The air around them vibrated with unspoken words, as they found a secluded corner away from the vibrant chaos. Bill couldn't shake the sensation of being on the brink, both excited and terrified by the possibilities. It was as if the universe had arranged this moment, threading together their past with his now, just as seamlessly as he had crafted the motorcycles gleaming under the night sky. "Thank you for that," he said, breaking the silence that hung like a weight between them. "It means a lot to hear that from you." He caught a flicker of something in Sarah's eyes. Was it a recognition of the past, or a hint of understanding for the man he was attempting to become? Sarah inhaled, exuding a mix of composure and urgency. "You've missed so much, Bill. I want you to know." But her voice trailed off, uncertainty clouding the air. He could see inner battles starting to play out behind her eyes. She seemed caught between professing encouragement and resisting the vulnerability that lay beneath her surface. Bill recognized the moment. He felt the familiar tug of his own fears. "It's okay, Sarah. We both have things to say. What do you want to share?" Her resistance made his heart thrum with both panic and determination. "Sometimes I thought about reaching out," she replied, her voice steadied with genuine regret. "You were on your journey. I didn't want to disrupt your progress, but I often wondered if you were okay." The confession landed like a thunderbolt between them. The idea of being seen, of being missed, felt foreign yet exhilarating. "I thought I was lost," he admitted, surprised by his honesty. "I had no idea where to turn. But it was moments like these that pulled me through the darkness, reminders of the man I aspired to be. I want to prove to myself that I can reclaim my life, reforge connections." The warmth of his truth infused his words with clarity as they hung between them. Her gaze softened, and Bill sensed a shift as she exhaled slowly. "You've built so much," she said, glancing toward the motorcycles, almost as if acknowledging his designs were not just metal and chrome, but parts of him laid bare for the world to see. "But what are your real dreams now? What do you want for yourself beyond this?" For the first time, he realized it was not merely about the motorcycles, but about the legacy he desired to leave behind, not just as a builder, but as a father, friend, and partner. "I want to create something meaningful, possibly for my daughter, something she can be proud of, and maybe, just maybe, rebuild a connection with someone who shared that vision." Sarah's expression shifted, a blend of respect and curiosity blooming within. "That takes courage, Bill, but don't underestimate the potential for growth from facing your past." Something in her tone anchored him, suggested that she still believed in the possibilities of both of them. Yet, beneath the understanding, he felt the undercurrent of unresolved feelings hovering between them, the weight of untraveled roads still haunting their original path. Would this conversation bring clarity or deepen the wounds that had brought their separate lives to this juncture? Taking a step closer, Bill tilted his head. "What if we could help each other, not just as friends, but partners in whatever this may become?" His heart raced at this new leap, the willingness to grasp at an opportunity that felt precarious yet enticing. For a breathless moment, she paused, the tension refocusing into purpose. "I'd be open to exploring that idea, but," she hesitated, eyes searching his, "it comes with risks. Are you ready to confront not only what we lost, but the potential that lies ahead?" Bill swallowed hard, his pulse echoing in his ears. This was more than an offer. This was a dare to confront the balance between desire and fear, and he knew he was now teetering on the brink. As thoughts spiraled, he felt weighed down by both hope and apprehension. "Absolutely," he replied, voice steadied by the urgency within. "I'm ready." As they moved closer, the air thick with new intentions, he sensed that what lay ahead would irrevocably change their paths, for better or worse. But was he prepared for the confrontation not only with his past, but the unknown future that beckoned? The question burned brightly in his mind, simmering with infinite possibilities as their worlds began to intertwine once more. Bill took a deep breath, the scent of gasoline and warm metal surrounding him as Sarah's presence eclipsed everything else. He could feel the intensity of the moment pulsating in the air. The question she had posed echoed in his mind. Confront not only what they lost, but what they could still forge. Her eyes held a mixture of hope and caution, and Bill realized he had a choice to make. He stepped back, needing distance to let the weight of her words settle within him. It was more than a professional crossroads. It was deeply personal. For years he had buried his dreams beneath layers of cynicism and self-doubt, but Sarah's encouragement was a flicker of light in what had felt like an endless night. He couldn't merely return to the past. He had to actively sculpt a future where vulnerability wasn't a weakness, but a strength. "Can you help me set goals?" he asked, feeling a sudden rush of boldness. "Not just for building motorcycles, but for my life. I want to explore what matters beyond the shop." Surprised, Sarah's smile revealed the glimmer of an ally in his journey. "Absolutely," she replied, with a warmth that spread through him. "Let's start small. What do you envision for yourself in the next year?" It was a simple question, yet it forced him to untangle the plethora of desires swirling in his mind. He began to envision a workshop, a sanctuary where he could teach not just the mechanics of building, but the philosophy behind it. "I want to create a space where craftsmanship meets intention," he said, his voice steady as realization flowed through him. "A place to inspire others." "See, you're already defining your vision," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. As they brainstormed ideas, Bill felt the layers of self-imposed limitations peeling away. He challenged himself to consider not just the motorcycles, but all the skills he had neglected. Time management, marketing. He was a capable man, an adaptable man, but he had to confront that which he had avoided for too long. "Why didn't you reach out to me sooner?" he questioned, a mix of curiosity and concern lacing his tone. Sarah bit her lower lip, a gesture that hinted at her own hesitations. "I was afraid you wouldn't want to hear from me. I thought I was too far removed from that world of your growth." Belief in others' perceptions often shackled them both, framing relationships in old narratives. "We can redefine our boundaries," he said, leaning forward. "If we don't begin now, we'll only have regrets." The conversation spiraled into plans, realistic goals, potential obstacles, timelines for reaching them. With every idea exchanged, Bill felt an emotional weight lifting. Their shared passion for creating something meaningful became a dynamic force that fueled their discussions. Sarah jotted notes on her phone, her fingers flying, and he could see the vision emerging in her eyes, just as he once envisioned the contours of a motorcycle. Yet underneath the excitement, Bill felt an unsettling thrum of reality lurking. What if this place, the new beginning they were envisioning, wasn't just a sweep towards aspirations, but a step into vulnerability? "Bill," Sarah said suddenly, breaking his reverie, "it's important we stay honest here. We both have baggage. We have to agree on boundaries. I don't want this partnership to blind us from facing our past." "Agreed," he answered, wading into the murky waters of his own unresolved emotions. Acknowledging that uncertainty became part of the foundation they were trying to build. He had to accept the risk embedded in every meaningful connection. Could they face the ghosts of their previous choices together? The air that had once felt electrified now pulsed with both possibility and trepidation. Bill sensed that each step taken with Sarah wasn't merely a professional alliance, but could easily intertwine their personal evolution. Their past shared a richness he hadn't fully realized until now, a canvas of opportunities waiting to merge with the aspirations being birthed in the moment. They gathered their thoughts, an unspoken agreement forming between them. Trust would be fundamental, yet the shadows hung heavy, ready to strike at the moment they let their guards down. Could their newfound partnership withstand the turbulent waters ahead? As their plans began to take shape, uncertainty gripped Bill's heart. The interplay of hope and fear was palpable. The trajectory of their lives seemed poised on the edge of transformation. The journey they envisioned was inviting, yet what lay ahead could either forge them anew or unravel everything they dared to dream. With that ambiguous future looming, one question lingered prominently in his mind. What would happen when they finally faced the truths they had been running from? The thought crackled in his mind, demanding resolution as they readied to take the plunge into the unknown. Bill awoke the next morning with a resolve that felt foreign yet invigorating. The walls of his small apartment were the same, and the familiar hum of the city outside hadn't changed, but something within him had shifted. He felt charged, ready to embrace the uncomfortable reality of the journey ahead, yet an undercurrent of anxiety tugged at his thoughts. He knew that actionable steps were necessary to transform dreams into reality. The vision Sarah and he had painted of a collaborative workshop resonated deeply, but dreams without a plan were mere fantasies. He needed to dissect his ambitions into manageable sectors. With a fresh pot of coffee brewing, he grabbed a notebook and began outlining his goals. The first page filled world with ideas, turning into a flurry of ambition peppered with anxiety-driven questions. What were the essential skills he needed? How could he create a community that connected people through craftsmanship? Each query marked another point on his list, but self-doubt lingered. Had he lost the ability to follow through? Setting the pen down, Bill leaned back in his chair, frustration bubbling. "You can't go back to old patterns," he chastised himself. This was his moment for both self-discovery and professional rebirth. He couldn't afford to revert to the familiar embrace of defeat. Words spoken the night before echoed loudly. Vulnerability was not a weakness, it was the foundation for growth. He decided to tackle his first weakness: marketing. He couldn't design his workshop in a vacuum. He needed an audience, and that meant reaching beyond his comfort zone. Internet research led him to a local small business seminar happening that week. It could provide critical insights, connections, and potentially pave the way for understanding how to present himself publicly. As Bill prepared to leave, he glanced at himself in the mirror. The man staring back was surrounded by layers of past failures, yet today he bore a new expression: determination intertwined with hope. He straightened his jacket and stepped out into the crisp air, buoyed by a fresh resolve. The seminar buzzed with energy, filled with individuals eager to discuss, sharing ideas and branding. Bill initially felt the familiar pangs of insecurity as he shuffled through the crowd, observing others who appeared more polished and self-assured. Yet, instead of retreating, he engaged in conversations, soaking in the tips offered by experienced entrepreneurs. By the end of the event, Bill felt a surge of adrenaline. He had networked, exchanged contact information with potential allies, and even pitched a rough version of his workshop concept to a few interested listeners. Each interaction chipped away at his anxieties, illuminating the path forward. When he returned home, the weight of hope pressed against him, more significant than the shadows of doubt. He sat with his notes from the seminar and his goals for the workshop, merging the insights he had gained with his vision. Strategies began forming: target audiences, classes he could teach, practical marketing tactics, and for the first time in years, planning felt invigorating rather than burdensome. Yet beneath that excitement, Bill wrestled with a burgeoning revelation. His identity wasn't solely tied to his past failures as a mechanic or a father. It was evolving in the present moment. Each decision carried the weight of his aspirations. But just as he felt on the verge of breaking ground, a lingering question invaded his thoughts. What about Sarah? Their partnership could be a double-edged sword, filled with potential but also the risk of unresolved feelings complicating their professional dynamic. Their honesty about boundaries would need to stand firm against the tides of their past. As he secured his notes and prepared for sleep, a fresh uncertainty formed in his mind. Could he maintain the necessary boundaries to ensure professional growth without allowing emotions to creep in? The moment of truth was approaching, weighed heavily with both possibility and dread. His next encounter with Sarah would not only be a check-in on progress, but a confrontation of what their relationship might evolve into. Would their partnership merely be one forged in shared goals, or would it bleed into the very personal realms they had danced around? As the night draped itself around him, that suspenseful question hung palpably in the air, waiting for the dawn to answer it. Bill's heart raced as he entered the small cafe where he had agreed to meet Sarah. The atmosphere buzzed with the sound of clinking cups and quiet chatter, yet he felt like an island in the crowded room. The moment he spotted her, sitting at a table with a laptop open in front of her, the familiar stir of past feelings flickered within him. This was not just a meeting of minds, it was a potential minefield of emotions. As he approached, he took a moment to gather himself, pushing aside the mix of excitement and trepidation. Sarah looked up, her eyes lighting up when they met his. Despite the casual air, he sensed the weight of unspoken words and unresolved issues hanging between them. "Hey there," she greeted, her voice warm but edged with uncertainty. "I've been looking forward to this." "Me too," he replied, forcing a smile that masked his inner turmoil. He slid into the chair opposite her, feeling the gravity of their circumstances settle around them. They began by discussing their shared vision for the workshop, and the excitement in Sarah's voice was palpable. Each idea she offered spun fresh tendrils of inspiration in Bill's mind, fueling him to elaborate further. The correlation between their histories and future aspirations was becoming clearer, resonating deeply as they bounced ideas back and forth. However, with each exchanged thought came a reminder of their past, a history laced with vulnerability and connection. Hesitation lingered in the pauses between their dialogue, echoing the unspoken tension. Bill seized the moment, pushing himself to address the elephant in the room. "Sarah, can we talk about what happens next? Not just the workshop, but us?" She looked at him, her expression shifting from enthusiasm to caution. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I know we're here to work together, but this is new territory for both of us. I don't want past feelings to get messy." Her lips tightened, and the smile slipped slightly. "I appreciate you bringing this up. I want our work to be clear, but everything feels tangled. The way we left things, it's complicated." Bill's stomach nodded as he watched her struggle with the words, and he felt a surge of frustration mixed with resolve. "I don't want to complicate things either, but I also can't ignore that you're a significant part of my life. We need boundaries, but we also need to be honest about what we want." To achieve together. The silence stretched between them like a tightrope, teetering on the brink of clarity and confusion. Then she nodded slowly. "We can commit to being transparent, to keep emotions separate from our goals, but let's agree that if it becomes difficult, we'll address it immediately." Relief washed over Bill, mingled with a lingering tension that still pulsed beneath the surface. They had set a tentative foundation, but surety evaded him. Would delineating the boundaries truly smooth the path to their professional ambitions, or would those lines soon blur? As they wrapped up their meeting, focusing on specific tasks and timelines, Bill felt invigorated yet uneasy. While the workshop seemed tangible, the nuances of their personal dynamics were woven intricately into the fabric of their shared future. Leaving the cafe felt surreal, like he had stepped into a new chapter that was rich with potential but fraught with unresolved questions. He mentally ran through the workshop plan, but images of Sarah flickered in and out of focus, her laughter, her passion, her unresolved complexities. That night, as he stared at the workshop roadmap he had sketched, a deep frustration simmered within him. He craved clarity in his personal ambitions, a clearer path to how he could redefine his identity, not just as a professional, but as a person navigating past relationships. The thought weighed heavily on him. Was this emotional uncertainty a precursor to failure, or was it simply part of a larger process of growth? His pen hovered over the paper, a well of ideas waiting to pour forth, but his mind spun. Would he be able to harness his frustrations, or would they spiral, affecting not just his relationship with Sarah, but also the professional leap he so desperately needed? With a deep breath, he set the pen down and wandered to the window. Outside, the city thrummed with energy, bright lights illuminating a world of possibilities. Yet inside himself, doubt clouded the horizon. The moment of truth seemed to hover closer, and he could feel it inching towards him like a storm on the horizon. What would it take for him to transform not just his career, but also to confront the emotional patterns that had held him back? The time had come for him to take risks that went beyond professional ambition. He needed to confront the deeply ingrained beliefs about himself tied to his past. He understood now that the true test of this journey was about more than just the workshop. It was about redefining who he was meant to be. As he turned back to his notes, a simmering idea began to form within him, carrying the weight of excitement and fear. What if he truly learned to embrace vulnerability as a strength, no longer tethered by the past? That question sparked a fire of anticipation within him, brewing into something powerful, ready to unfold. Bill rose early the next morning, determination coursing through him like a fresh surge of adrenaline. The workshop's roadmap stared back at him, its once sparse lines now filled with ideas and excitement. Yet, a nagging thought whispered in the back of his mind. Would he dare to step outside the confines of his own fears? With a cup of coffee in hand, he sat at his desk, embarking on an exploration of his intentions. Bill began writing a list of personal goals he had shelved for years. Finish the course he started before life swept him off course. Strengthen his connections with people who inspired him. And, perhaps most daunting, learn to articulate his feelings openly. Each goal was a stepping stone laid out before him, but with each stroke of the pen, self-doubt nipped at his heels. What right did he have to pursue such aspirations? He had been so immobilized by past failures, his hang-ups about relationships, his skepticism towards authority, and his ultimately fractured sense of self-worth that even ambition felt foreign. Yet, the urgency to evolve simmered beneath the surface, igniting something buried deep within him. Was it possible that vulnerability was his true strength? Reflecting on his meeting with Sarah the previous day, he recognized that authentic communication was crucial not only for their partnership, but for his personal liberation. He picked up his phone and drafted a message to her, taking a decisive step toward clarity. Let's schedule a time to discuss our roles in the workshop and check in on how we're doing. I think being open with each other will set the right tone. It felt exhilarating and terrifying to send it. As the day unfolded, Bill devoted himself to preparing for the workshop. The thrill of creation enveloped him. With each exercise he crafted, he began to envision the environment he wanted to foster for others, a space where vulnerability became an asset. Glistening thoughts of participants collaborating and sharing their fears and aspirations centered around a communal heat. This was his vision, the antithesis of the isolation he had often felt. As the hours passed, though, his anxiety began to punctuate his concentration. He oscillated between exhilaration about the potential outcome and fear that his efforts might yield disappointment. People would come expecting a captivating experience. What if he fell short? The specter of failure loomed large over him. He busied himself fighting the whirlwind of doubt. Creating comforting boundaries for himself became both a mantra and an anchor. Later that day, he stood in front of the mirror, taking stock of his reflections. Life's experiences etched like scars. "You've got this," he told himself, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Embracing vulnerability wouldn't be easy, and he was aware it might expose his insecurities. But without that risk, he would remain stagnant. Timelines unfurling before him felt like a countdown. With Sarah's input, their shared work could manifest into something impactful. Challenges would inevitably come, but this was about more than a professional endeavor. It was a chance for him to redefine who he was. Bill grabbed the sketch of the workshop and realized that this was his canvas, one that could embody not just ambition, but growth. Later that evening, driven by a newfound sense of determination, he decided to reach out to others in his network, inviting them to participate, to connect. Each reply he received contained a mix of enthusiasm and trepidation, yet descriptions of shared interests mysteriously fueled him, liberating him from the shadows of isolation. As he reflected on the day, a nagging thought resurfaced. Was he truly prepared to confront his fears head-on? What would happen if that vulnerability paved the way for deeper connections or led to unexpected confrontations? The moment approached when he would have to walk the line between his creations and the emotional undercurrents at play. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the realization struck him. He was standing at a precipice between his old self and a version of Bill who could truly embrace vulnerability. The stakes of this journey would rise as he summoned the courage to tackle not just professional ambitions, but also personal truths. With a determined heart, Bill closed his eyes, envisioning the workshop with all its potential, and a question emerged, stirring within him. What truths would he have to face when he dared to step into that vulnerability? The moment to confront those fears loomed closer, promising transformation yet shrouded in uncertainty. Bill stepped into the workshop, his sanctuary of dreams and aspirations finally taking shape. The fresh scent of wood and paint mingled with the scent of gasoline, reminders of hard work and tangible progress. The rhythmic clanging of tools echoed in the background while the sunlight filtered through the garage windows, illuminating the space he had meticulously crafted for others and himself. This was his moment, the culmination of all the dedication he had poured into the project ahead of its opening day. His hands moved deftly, arranging the final touches. He had committed to teaching, sharing not only the mechanics behind building, but the stories of resilience intertwined with every creation. Each motorcycle would symbolize triumph over adversity, echoing his own journey, tangible proof of his transformation. He didn't just want to showcase his talents, he wanted to inspire others to confront their own fears and, in doing so, reclaim their lives. As the hours slipped away and the opening hour drew near, a nervous energy filled the room. He replayed the conversations he'd had with Sarah, their shared hopes for the workshop sweeping through his mind like a current. Informing the space with the spirit of collaboration and innovation was not simply professional ambition, it was personal redemption. The moment he had long anticipated was upon him. The first participants trickled in, tentative and mesmerized by the vibrant display surrounding them. Bill greeted each with enthusiasm, easing their nerves as he introduced himself, allowing his authenticity to shine through. His earlier fears that had once held him back melted away with each interaction. What he saw reflected back were faces eager to explore not only their craftsmanship, but also the vulnerabilities that accompanied it. As conversations intertwined and laughter filled the air, he felt himself expand. Encouraged by their energy, Bill learned to embrace the power of his own story, sharing moments of struggle and success. He generated an atmosphere encouraging dialogue and trust, where participants could feel safe enough to peel back their layers of self-doubt. The workshop flourished under the authenticity he had nurtured. It became a shared experience illuminated by vulnerability. Just then, amidst the chatter, Sarah arrived, her smile a beacon that sharpened his focus. Unwavering in her support, she welcomed participants, effortlessly merging their collaborative ideas with hers. There was an innate synergy between them now, a bridge of understanding built atop their renewed commitment to openness and honesty. They had truly faced the challenge of vulnerability together, leading not only the workshop, but also each other toward uncharted territories of growth. "Wow, this is amazing!" she exclaimed, standing next to one of the finished motorcycles. Bill felt a swell of pride at her appreciation, recognizing that while he had meticulously crafted the physical space, they were collectively creating a community, one where emotions intertwined with craftsmanship. As the gathering progressed, Bill was approached by a participant who had been quietly observing. "I never thought I would be able to work on something like this. Your story really spoke to me and made me feel like I can push through my own fears," she said, her voice strong but infused with emotion. A rush of warmth enveloped him at that moment, validating the very purpose he had set out to achieve, a ripple effect of impact. The workshop was about much more than mechanics. It was a reclamation of dreams and aspirations, sparking the ignition of personal transformation in others. Later, he found a moment of solitude amidst the camaraderie and laughter swirling around him. Reflecting on how far he had come since that fair, the shadows of self-doubt that had once plagued him felt distant. He had conquered the fears that had tethered him to his past, stepping fully into his present. This was genuine fulfillment. Bill's journey had led him here, and he realized he was not just building motorcycles or launching a workshop. He was building connections, ones that would endure well past these initial days. The experience ignited a deeper appreciation for the challenges that all faced, and he learned that the road to achievement was laden with bumps, not barriers. As the day wound down, participants gathered to share their experiences. Each story a testament to bravery, igniting a sense of community. Bill stood alongside Sarah, their mutual respect growing with every shared success. Proud to have journeyed together and to have cultivated an environment of growth and accountability. With Emily's face in his mind, he acknowledged the personal victory that came from embracing vulnerability. He could finally answer her belief in him, proving that it was possible to not only dream, but to act upon those dreams. That moment, surrounded by passion-fueled discourse and laughter, Bill felt a new intimacy blossom with Sarah. They weren't just partners in business, they were allies in evolution. Here was the life he had aspired to live, a path drawn from vulnerability, resilience, and authentic connection. As Bill turned off the lights that night, a smile broke on his face. He was stepping into a new dawn, confident and secure, a man transformed indeed. He understood now that courage lay in embracing not just successes, but vulnerabilities, creating a foundation to build upon both personally and professionally. This was the definition of achievement, not just reaching goals, but ultimately evolving into the version of himself he had always longed to become. If you're inspired by Bill's incredible journey and transformation, you need to subscribe to the channel now to catch all the next exclusive emotional stories. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like to help with the algorithm and ensure these powerful narratives reach those who need them. Comment your thoughts and reactions about Bill's journey. We want to hear from you. And remember to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use some motivation today. Your support makes all the difference.